Hi, I'm Mimi Chan. Welcome to Culture Chat. Thanks for joining the conversation. Portland is under attack, not from protesters, but from the federal agents that have infiltrated the city. Greg Rucka discusses the issues surrounding and leading up to what he feels has been the invasion of Portland. He also shares his views on the presidency and the current state of politics. As many of you know, Greg gets very passionate about his beliefs. I am grateful for the opportunity to share and vent through these conversations, but I'm also reminded that it is a time to take action. Please follow and explore the organizations on my website to get involved and help make a difference. Greg also answers a few more listener questions at the end. Thank you so much to everyone who submitted these questions. Please continue to send us more. These weekly conversations have been amazing with Greg, and I am truly grateful to him for spending 16 weeks in a row with me during the pandemic. Next week, we will be taking 1 week off, but don't worry, we will be back the following week to discuss Circe by Madeline Miller. So please send along your questions and any points you'd like us to discuss. For those of you that don't already know, Greg Rucka is a New York Times best-selling author of hundreds of comics and nearly 24 novels. He is also the writer for the hit film The Old Guard, starring Charlize Theron. As always, please listen with an open mind. I'm loving these conversations and hope you are too. If you are, please rate my podcast on your platform of choice and share it with others. Finally, if you'd like to support with a donation, I would surely appreciate it. Help me keep this podcast going. You can do so on patreon.com or on my website. For comments or suggestions, email me at mimi@culturechatpodcast.com or reach out on social media at SifuMimiChan. Now, on with the show. Hello, Greg.
Hey, how are you?
I'm well. As always, I'm always a little bit better because I'm talking to you. But and you know,
butterflies,
I mean
butterflies and rainbows. Yay!
It's always butterflies and rainbows with us. What do you mean?
There you go.
It's as usual. There's been a lot that happens from week to week from our daily, our weekly conversations. Our daily lives are consumed with lots of things, but I've been worried about Portland. You guys are making more news than Florida, which is kind of a big deal for me.
Right, because the news in Portland is different, right? And why talk about the failure of the government to keep its citizens alive when the New York Times today reported over 4 million Americans are infected, and that's the reported numbers, so it's probably closer to 12 million, over 140,000 confirmed dead. But you know what? Let's send Trump's secret police into Portland, because for 50 days, citizens have been saying murdering Black people is wrong, systemic racism is wrong, white supremacy is wrong, that the origins of the American police force comes out of the, slave patrols, and that the industrial prison complex is an extension of that, and there are other ways to keep communities safe, and that if you teach somebody that every hammer is, or every problem is a nail, then they're all hammers. And, the amazing thing about a camera is that if you point it at something, you don't see anything else around it. So, Hissy Fitler can stand up there and say, Portland is on fire. And my friend, the artist Matthew Clark, put on his Instagram today this fantastic graphic, I presume he made, which is a map of the city of Portland. And it's got literally a pin dot red where the demonstrations have been happening. And that is apparently the justification to send in armed, anonymous government agents with fully automatic weapons to abduct, and this is what they're doing, it's not arrest. They're abducting citizens off the streets in unmarked vans without identifying themselves and moving them to an undisclosed location. They're not telling people where they are. So they're denying them due process. They are searching them without consent in an attempt to gather intelligence. They're looking for electronic devices. All we know, and this is the thing, we now don't know. We don't know if everybody who's been grabbed has been released. Mm-hmm. We don't know if they've been charged. This is Pinochet shit.
Yeah, no, this is
totalitarian regime bullshit. And then you add into that this week, they are attempting to take over every means of propaganda. The CDC is not allowed to report coronavirus deaths. That information has to go through the White House. Mm-hmm. So the White House has proprietary hold on that. That's illegal. There needs to be transparency here. There's supposed to be transparency here. It's illegal.
Yeah.
And don't get me started on the mainstream media responding to Trump has taken a more serious tone. No, he hasn't. And I'm so fucking tired of CNN and CBS and ABC and NBC and Fox saying, oh, look how presidential he is when he managed to read his cue cards 3 sentences in a row before literally going off and saying, oh, my friend, the woman who has been arrested for human trafficking and sexual slavery, I wish her well. I mean, Jesus Christ, people. Yeah. So there you go. We can blow the gasket. And then the cherry on top, our mayor here in Portland, Ted Wheeler, has not covered himself in glory in the last 2.5 months. He has failed to do anything that would calm the situation. He has allowed the police to engage in what I feel are incendiary and inflammatory tactics. But last night he decided he would go down and he would be on the ground because he's getting national coverage now saying these federal troops should not be here. And he got tear gassed along with everybody else. Okay, if that's what it takes for the rest of the country to go, hey, wait a damn minute. But the thing is, we're talking on a Thursday. You're going to see troops in Chicago and other places this weekend.
Yeah. So you already see that it's kind of popping up and there's been discussion of different cities having this. And that was one of the first things you posted when you started showing what was happening in Portland, and you're asking everyone to share, be aware, because this is not going to stop there. No, and that's what's really scary.
And we need to be really clear on this. This is a secret police force that is answering only to the president and his authority right now. And I can't think of anything more fundamentally un-American.
Yeah. Yeah, no, this is part of, in my head, like one of the reasons my father tried to escape communist China in that era, because things like this were always okay. You just don't know what would happen. And I saw so many different posts, and under any other circumstance, when someone is nabbed into a unmarked vehicle, it's called kidnapping.
Kidnapping, yeah.
And in this instance, somehow it is okay.
It isn't. And it absolutely isn't. And it is kidnapping. That's exactly what these people are doing. And they're doing it. And they're doing it because they don't like how somebody looks. Yeah. It is not simply going, oh, that person was clearly protesting. Mm-hmm. It is literally going, they're wearing black. And all of this ties into a bullshit narrative created by the administration that Antifa is a thing. No, Nazis are a thing. Proud Boys are a thing. Antifa is anti-fascist. And being fascist or being against fascism is a binary thing.
Right. I remember you've told me you had the best analogy. You're pregnant or you're not pregnant.
Yeah. It's you don't get to be kinda fascist, Yeah. So, it's disgusting, and frankly, it's terrifying.
Yeah, it is terrifying. I mean, and you're right there in Portland, so
Yeah.
it must feel very much like on your doorstep. And
It's ominous, and you do get the feeling that it's only a matter of time before they start going to door, and that's the next stage.
exactly, I was just going to ask you. I was like, is that what it feels like? Like if there's a knock at your door, you kind of go, "Oh God, what's happening?"
Well, they have over in Portland police was doing this. They were going after people outside of protests during the day. They would go to houses, but this is now demonstrably turning into something else where you can now we are literally there's nothing stopping one of these vans from pulling up outside my house and kicking in the door and dragging me out. I mean, that's the next step.
Yeah, I mean, and as a parent, right, you have two younger adult children, mind you, but I mean, you probably don't feel safe with them being out right now. Like you just feel unsafe in a city where, years ago, you would never have had these feelings of,
this is
the fear of, especially from the government.
Yeah.
Let alone.
So yeah, man, something's going to break, and something's going to break real soon. And I fear that what's going to break is that, these bastards, they're trying to provoke a gunfight. They want to be able to kill somebody. Mm-hmm. And Trump would like nothing more because, as he has said over and over again, the proof of how weak he is his fascination with what he believes is strength. Mm-hmm. And he thinks, he looks at the way the Chinese government put down Tiananmen as a show of strength. And he doesn't understand. Very disturbing. He doesn't understand that the strength of that moment is emblematic in the photo of a lone man standing in front of a line of tanks. Mm-hmm. That's strength. And the other thing he doesn't understand, further proof that he knows how weak he is, and this is also a great truth with somebody like Putin. People who are strong don't actually have to talk about it.
Right.
And I'm sure as a Sifu, you have encountered this, right? Yes. The student who says, well, now I know all this stuff and let me show off and I'm going to go out and pick a fight. That is not an exhibition of strength.
Yeah.
And to take this into comics, it's why I've never liked, there's a cliche Wolverine line, which is, I'm the best at what I do, and what I do isn't very pretty. And I was always like, yeah, except that that's true. He would never say it. Like my Logan would never talk about it.
Right.
He knows.
He doesn't need to say it.
Yeah. I mean, and you get that with special forces soldiers. Like the real ones don't talk about what they do. They know what they can do. And should they need to do it, they will. But the second I have to tell you how tough I am is the moment that I am revealing to you that I'm pretty much not. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm very concerned. And every day in the morning, I get my little 20 minutes of an update, and it's always disheartening. And then I have to go meditate on that and try to clear my head. And I don't social media often. I try to do limit it, but of course I follow you because that's where I get my my information from. And then I'm
not a reliable source.
And I'm like, oh, good Lord, what is happening? I'm like, well, I can't wait to talk to Greg this week because, of course, this has been escalating, but it is getting to a point now, like you said, where you just go, what city's next, right? And now I'm hoping there still continues to be, these peaceful protests around the country because we don't want the issue to go away. We don't want it to be out of sight, out of mind. I'm really proud of the fact that Portland especially has been so adamant in keeping that going and keeping that message loud and clear and showing that solidarity because it people they get kind of worn out, they get tired, and things have died down in many other places. And I think because it was so prevalent there, that was, you guys were like that first target, like, well, they haven't stopped.
Yeah. Well,
they haven't stopped yet.
We're also easier on the cameras, right? I mean, number one, Trump is playing to his base. He's not worried about losing Oregon. He's lost Oregon. Number two, it's pointing guns at a lot of white people mostly. Right? Number three, it's a dog whistle. We've got a big white supremacy problem in the Pacific Northwest, and it's a dog whistle to all the Proud Boys and survivalists and, you know, people who took the Malheur Refuge and all that stuff. And now is the time. You know, so it's really, you know, it is trying to start something. It is absolutely inflammatory. This guy wants blood. He wants blood.
Do you think he's just going crazy and grasping because he can feel things slipping away? Or
he's terrified.
Just that maniacal?
No, he's terrified.
Okay. He
is absolutely, look, all bullies are driven by cowardice. He has, and there is no there, and we know this. You talk to any New Yorker, and you know they're like, he's never been anything but a con man. All right, and the worst thing that can happen is for him to be revealed as what he really is, and he's terrified because he knows. This is the thing. It's not as if he's like, I didn't do anything wrong. He knows every single thing he's done wrong. He knows he knows he has had sex with underage girls, right? He knows that Putin's got video of him drinking a prostitute's urine or whatnot. He knows these things are true. He knows that he has robbed people. He knows that he has cheated people. He knows that he lies on his taxes. He knows all of this. It's all true. So what happens if he's out of office? It all comes home to roost. So he's terrified. He's going to do anything and everything he can to prevent himself from having to pay. And he is such a narcissist. I mean, he's devoid of empathy. He does not care about anybody but himself. So it doesn't matter how many people will die. COVID numbers aren't real to him. He can't conceive of it. He cannot conceive of it. He cannot conceive of a dead soldier in Afghanistan. And we've already forgotten about the fact that the Russians put a bounty on soldiers, and he knew apparently as far back as January, and the intelligence and hasn't done anything. His job, he's commander-in-chief. And that's not even news anymore.
Yeah, that's the frustrating thing.
Yeah.
News cycle just too fast, and there's so many bad things that have been done.
You look at his kids, you know, I mean, and is it any wonder? They're all broken. They genuinely, so, you know, he wants a civil war. He wants to remain in power because, one, he loves power. It's how he gets hard. And it's the only thing that he thinks will protect him. I'm not joking. I think he clearly gets off on it.
Yeah, no, I don't think you're joking.
So yeah, I mean, this is, and the thing is, like I say, he'll burn everything down to keep from going down. And the GOP now is once again in a position of going like, well, how far do we ride this? Yeah. And Mitch McConnell, unfortunately, is a guy who only cares about power, does not care about morality at all. So now it's just a sum of how much can I keep and what do I have to do?
Yeah, I mean, we all know there's no hope for that person that happens to be president right now, but my utter disappointment has been the Republican Party and not having any spine to try to maintain a semblance of morality and what I used to have as disagreements with people on, like, well, we just have a disagreement on policy, or we just have a disagreement on these things. But now it's like, how could you stand behind someone that stands for all of these things, or rather doesn't stand for the things you stand for, right? Like that's to me a much more impacting thing. And, you know, from the beginning, from way before the election, we watch all these different, political shows sometimes. And Bill Maher always said, like, once he's in, he's not going to leave. Like, do you think if he even loses the election, he's going to leave? He's going to come
Well,
up
he
with
will.
some
No,
crazy thing.
He won't be able to not leave. If he loses the election, he's got to be out by the 20th. And I guarantee you right now, if he doesn't go, the Secret Service will remove him. And if the Secret Service doesn't remove him, the military will remove him. And if there are people in the military who refuse to, that means the military will be, again, you get a civil war.
That's what I mean. I'm never really been legitimately scared of something like that.
But Mimi, we've been in a cold civil war for a minimum of 4 years. Pardon me, a minimum of 4 years now, if not 8. And again, this is the end result of 40 years of very direct, disciplined hard work. Hillary Clinton was once pilloried in the media, in particular on Fox, in the 90s for talking about the right-wing media conspiracy against her and her husband and the Democrats. Guess what? There's been a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of effort put into making a lot of the country believe spoon-fed lies, to destroy empathy, to destroy the ability to reason. And we're in a perfect storm of it.
We are. I mean, and it's even showing through our treatment of the pandemic as a people.
Yes. I mean, literally there are literally people who are refusing to wear a mask because they somehow feel it infringes their freedom. And the equivalent there is, the extension of that is, I can shoot you with my gun because you telling me I can't is infringing my freedom. I mean, that's the extent of it.
Yeah.
And if that's too hard for you, it's like, wear a seatbelt, motherfucker. It's against the law, I believe, in most states, if not all of them.
Yeah, I think so.
To drive without your seatbelt on. Right? You get a ticket if the police pull you over and you're not wearing your belt. It's against the law because seatbelts save lives.
Right.
Guess what? Masks do too. Now, everybody seemed to get over the fact that, you know what, these seatbelts aren't super comfortable. We now all wear them and we don't think about them. Put on a goddamn mask.
Yeah.
Because you're not doing it for you. You're doing it for everybody else.
Exactly.
And the arrogance and, again, misunderstanding, the inability to critically parse this, right, to turn wearing a mask as a don't tread on me issue. No, it's not. And at a certain point, you have to go, okay, you want to argue it's a point of freedom? Fine. My freedom says I get to run into you with this car. Why not? You telling me not to is impinging on my freedom.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? I mean, that's the extension of these arguments. These people are not willing to engage it there. What they want is for people who are not them to hurt. The pettiness and the spite, and that's the product of Fox, that's the product of Rush Limbaugh, that's the product of all of this stuff that, like I say, has been going on for over 40 years. It starts with Reagan. It accelerates with Newt Gingrich. It is why Fox News exists. It is made worse by the irresponsibility of people like Zuckerberg and Twitter's Jack and so on. And yeah, so, you know, look, and it's been bouncing around a lot, but it is true. And it's interesting to me, you know, I was talking to Fraction a couple days ago about, you know, we have federal troops occupying Portland. And he said, it's really interesting that all those gun rights people who are like, I need my guns to keep government overreach from heaven, they've gone really quiet. This is precisely the thing they were waiting to stand against.
Right. That's what they always claimed was
Yes.
why they needed
They
extra
always
guns.
claimed, I need a fully automatic weapon in case the government tries to take my freedoms. Where the fuck are they now? Oh, well, I know where they are. They're going, oh, no, they're hurting the right people, in their opinion, right?
Exactly.
They're hurting them liberals and those homos, you know? I mean, God damn, Trump retweeting some son of a bitch this morning saying, oh, those aren't real mothers in Portland. They're probably not even real women.
Oh, my gosh.
I mean, are you kidding me? It's insane. And that people would believe it.
Oh.
So, you know, again, congratulations. We're now half an hour in, and Greg is foaming at the mouth, and everybody's like, this is going to be the lowest rated of the cast. They're going to be like, oh, Christ, it's Rucka swearing and spitting again. So I don't know. Let's find a silver lining here.
Well, you kind of touched on it, right? So yes, I think that it's we can't look at anything that's being retweeted by government and our president and all of that because he is who he is. But you know, the Wall of Moms was something that was really inspiring.
And the next day we had a Wall of Dads.
And then the Wall of Dads, exactly,
with their leaf blowers.
and it's kind of an interesting thing that historically speaking, you always see like, oh, adding more fire to the flame and going back and forth. And in Kung Fu, there's a lot of yin and yang, and the way to fight something hard is with something soft and like, you know, fluid. And so I think I love that symbolism of seeing like the moms together and the like family, like you're basically showing, no, we are families, we are humans, we are people, and they're showing a different side. Yes, I get it. There's protesters that burn things. There are protesters that graffiti things. We talked about that in previous shows, and we talked about why. We understand why they are burning things because nobody's paying attention.
And the equation here is, again, these things are not, they're just not remotely the same. Say, oh, they spray painted a cab on the side of the federal building. They broke some windows, right? They did property damage. Okay. That still is not even remotely the same thing as murdering somebody because of the color of their skin.
Exactly.
And doing it with impunity and to imply
with
that,
no punishment, with no consequence.
And to imply that wanting to be held accountable for that and the rage. And again, it's been said multiple times, protest by definition, right, is not permissive. That's why it's protest. It is literally saying, I do not accept, I will not accept this. Well, of course, power is like, oh, well, shit, we would like you to. You know, so I will tell you one of the things I take great comfort in is that, you know, Trump's Gestapo showed up in Portland and they started this bullshit. And the numbers have like tripled of who's showing up at night now. Like, instead of quieting it down, what they did is they amplified it.
Right.
Like, a lot of the people who are like, I am not willing to go out there yet, are people who, you know, I mean, Jen was talking about, and she was talking about, it's funny, she was talking about this like the day before the moms, like it was the day that the moms went.
Yeah.
So it hadn't hit the news. And her train of thought clearly was theirs. She was like, I'm going to dress up in black and I'm going to go walking downtown because they should arrest a 51-year-old mother of 2 white women. Right? Mm-hmm. And you can see that's exactly what's the train of thought. It's like, this is not about, you guys so don't get the point. Mm-hmm. And it ain't going to go away, which is
Yeah.
You know, so there's a real simple choice. There's an easy solve for all this, right? And the easy solve is there are another 400 things that Trump can be impeached on. And if the Republicans had a brain cell between them and were actually going, you know, it would be nice. It would be nice to preserve the Republic. And it would also be nice to actually maybe maintain some sort of political party. What they would do at this moment is they would impeach his ass. And they would take the whole crew and they would get them all out, right? Yeah. And they would do everything they could to make it look like they were cleaning house so that by the time the election came about, they would be able to run on a platform of going, are bad, we will heal it. Mm-hmm. But they are ride or die with him, and the question is why?
Yeah, I just don't understand it.
See, well, I have a theory, and It sounds conspiracy theory, but my theory is that everything the Russians have on Trump, they have on the other Republicans. There is an actual stat I came across that said, and this was before Trump, your Republican lawmakers were 30 times more likely to be indicted for corruptions than Democrats. That was before Trump. So if you think they've got compromise on Hissy Fitler, yeah, right, that is a party that cannot afford, you know, I mean, you got your congressman in Florida. What's one of them going to do if he turns around and says, yeah, it turns out I like having sex with other men, but I ran as a good Christian family man. Mm-hmm. All right. So it is, I have no doubt in my mind, I mean, none, that, you know, that fated meeting in the Oval Office after he took office, you know, with his Russian buddies, right. I'm pretty sure there was like, and here's what we've got on everybody else. Yeah. And you take that, you take greed, you take, you know, you take this holy roller, born again evangelical bullshit that says God wants us all to get so bad that Jesus will show up again. What sort of loving God want? I mean, honestly, if you believe in the love of Christ, how in the world can you get to a place that says, so we need to hurry up and have Armageddon? Right? I mean, those two don't.
But most of it doesn't make sense. I mean, and we all know also that Putin's going to be in charge of Russia for like ever. So he's
going to die
until he dies, basically.
He's going to die or somebody's going to put a bullet in him. Yeah, he's never leaving on his own
until he's dead. So that's pretty much not going to change. And yeah, that like I said, that's been the more surprising thing, that there's no one been strong enough that had that strength to stand up to him and stand up for what they actually did used to believe in, which maybe I didn't agree with everything, but I didn't see them as immoral human beings. You know?
We've talked about the fact that, you know, Lark has bemoaned to me on more than one occasion that used to be able to argue with people about policy.
Mm-hmm. We can't do it anymore.
And I genuinely don't understand. I mean, I really don't. I genuinely do not understand how anyone can look at the permissiveness of the Republican Party of this and still identify as a Republican and not in some way acknowledge that they are, that in so doing, they are also acknowledging that they are racists and xenophobes and homophobes and yeah, I mean, the Republican Party used to be the party of environmentalism and conservation. Mm-hmm. And it's not now. It is entirely the party of end stage rampant capitalism. It is entirely the party of make as much money as you can and literally fuck everybody else that you can in the process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been very divisive, which I think is the biggest thing that I've seen just like on the ground level amongst family members, amongst friends, and that's just literally where we see like this country is completely torn apart. And you can just see it in your immediate circle of people that you know, right? And one of the things I was curious about for you is if you, because I can't write his name, I can't say his name, it's like Beetlejuice to me, right? So I don't retweet anything that has his name in it. I'll be like President Cheeto or whatever.
Yeah.
But like
45 is a good dodge.
I think that's still too nice. It's too generous, but yes, 45. So everybody keeps sending me, oh, you need to read the niece's book. You need to read Bolton's book. I'm like, I just don't want to. I mean, are you interested in those narratives? Like, listen,
not at this moment. Not at this moment. I am. The EMT in me is not interested in the car crash. The EMT in me is interested in what happens after the crash. Mm-hmm. I don't need to see how the car went off the road. I know how it went off the road. If we survive, and I mean as a nation, if we survive this, in 10 years, I'll be more than happy to read that stuff. But right now it's an element of self-care. It's not revelatory to me. There's nothing in those books. Ultimately, there will be details and facts that I was unaware of. Mm-hmm. But there's nothing that's going to make me go, oh, I was wrong about the guy.
Right. That's what I said. I go, there's nothing, I don't need to know any more that's going to make me angrier.
I mean, there's no way anybody's ever going to convince me that he's actually much smarter than he is. He's not. He's a moron. He's an idiot. He is a liar and a con man. And he has gotten away with it over and over again because he's also a bully, and he bullies those who are going to call him on it. Mm-hmm. And that's what this is right now. Look at it in that light. These protests are him being called on his behavior. Mm-hmm. So what's his response? Well, I'm going to make you shut up by hitting you. And the thing is, I'm sure that when Cy Hirsch publishes his book or whatnot, it's going to turn out to have been 100 times worse than we thought it was. Yeah. I don't have the bandwidth to give it to that. It's bad enough that, today's chat, the last chat we're going to have for 2 weeks, right, is us having to talk about it to this extent because, and part of what this is, and maybe I suppose this is the value of it, is that it allows us to blow off the steam.
Yeah, no, I was like, this is a good vent session. I think it's okay.
And it comes down to self-care. So for me right now, reading Bolton's book would actually be, excuse me, the remainder of a corn nut found the back of my throat.
You're all right.
Reading Bolton's book would simply be, it wouldn't be self-care. It would be self-harm. All it would do. Circe right now is self-care.
Lovely. Yeah. Right? And listeners, we are going to discuss it, I promise. So please start sending in questions for.
Yeah, no. I guess we should address that. I'm not going to be able to talk next week, but the week after, I should be done with the novel and we'll be happy to discuss it at length.
Excellent. Yeah. So listeners, please start sending thoughts, questions, all of that. And Greg and I will definitely be talking about it soon. So, so we
hang on, wait. So let's do the plug. We're talking about, the book is Circe by Madeline Miller.
Circe by Madeline Miller. Yes. Circe by Madeline Miller. And I will link that here, and I will continue to post reminders to everyone as well. So do your reading, everyone. Yes. We've given you plenty of time.
That's right.
Mr. Greg's been quite busy, if you even noticed, like writing this amazing movie that's getting all the love in the world called The Old Guard on Netflix. So if you haven't seen that yet, make sure you catch that. That'll be quite actually uplifting and something to kind of take you out of the madness of any news cycle. So please go and watch that. But last week we talked a lot about listener questions. We had a whole slew of questions. I did have a few overflow questions, so we could probably hit those up.
Yeah. Let's do that.
Yes.
Let's do that.
I think we've made our point here.
Oh, yes.
I think we've made our point. So question one is, how much does research time factor into whether or not you take on a project? And are there any characters you feel you could write without much research, like maybe Batman? And what kind of research specifically did you have to do for Lois Lane?
Yeah, there are stories that I can slide into utilizing or leveraging previously acquired knowledge at this point. In those cases, what sometimes will happen is then I'll write myself into a situation where it's like, well, I better figure out what I'm talking about. And that may simply be going on to, Google and, or well, I should say going onto the internet and trying to find a street map of, a town in Eastern Turkey, or the name of the football team that plays there, or any number of things, right? Mm-hmm. Other ideas will require arming myself more fully before I can get into them. So it is situational. With Lois, what I actually did is I read a lot of reporters. In fact, one of the things I read was a book called Reporter by the aforementioned Seymour Cy Hirsch. And there was, I want to say, what was it? There was a Showtime series that Bendis pointed me at. About the New York Times, in the 2016 election. And I want to say it was called The Fourth Estate, but I don't remember the title of it. But it was a documentary series sort of looking at how a modern newsroom works in part. It's also a pretty scathing indictment as to...
Yeah, you're right. It's The Fourth Estate.
Yeah, it's also a pretty scathing indictment into the Times' complicity in getting Trump elected, but that's a separate thing. But so, and I've known some reporters, so I was able to talk to them. Okay. But one of the elements that I settled on pretty early, and then there are certain websites, like there's the Committee to Protect Journalists, right? That I went, I did a lot of reading there, and there was some stuff that I came to the book with. Mm-hmm. So it was a pick and choose case, right? It becomes really situational. Mm-hmm. I'm working on something right now that jumps around in time an awful lot. It's not the Old Guard actually, but it bounces around a lot in time, and that by its nature demands a necessity. If I'm setting something in 1903. I have to have an idea what 1903 looked like. Right. And then if I'm going to drop to, 1770, I need to know what 1770 looked like. So. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Next question is, you talked a lot about writing on set and referencing the Old Guard, sometimes with actors standing next to you. Do you think that could work for comics? Because the listener said he was thinking about the writer and artist working side by side every once in a while. Would that be a good thing, or would it help the final product?
Well, the pace is a different thing, but that is sort of the nature of the collaboration. That's certainly what I try to pursue. So, when I'm working with and again, it depends on your collaborator. Like if you look at the original Detective Comics Batwoman run I did with J.H. Williams, that was almost entirely a collaborative effort, right? That would be me getting on the phone with him for hours and saying, so this is what I want to do in the story, and this is where the story needs to go. And he would come back with, ooh, well, this is a visual that I think could work really well, and I like this idea, and I have this thing, and I have this idea that I've always wanted to do. Is there a place we could use it?
Mm-hmm.
So that the actual typing of the script is a different it is simply sort of documenting the collaborative conversation,
mm-hmm.
and putting and painting the walls of the building that you've made, right?
Mm-hmm.
Adding the dialogue and putting in everything like that. So the immediacy of writing on set, with the director and the actors and your producers all present, is driven by the necessity that you are in production, and every minute that is being spent is money being spent.
Exactly.
So there is a different kind of urgency at work. But, I'm working on something right now with Rick Burchett, and talk to him all the time about it.
Right.
I've got a script in with Cully Hamner for a project
that
is entirely the result of conversations he and I have had.
Mm-hmm.
With Nick, and again, some of it is, Michael wants me to surprise him. He doesn't want to know where things are going too much.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to be careful how we angle the collaboration, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
But to answer the question, yeah, it absolutely works. There is a fiction that, Marvel had this bullpen where everybody would sit around and the artists were over here and the writers, and no, they weren't. There was no bullpen. There wasn't. There just wasn't. But the idea behind it's a great idea and can be executed in different ways. So
yeah, I mean, and I've talked to you and Michael Lark, and of course, if there's something that comes up, the modern technology of Let Me Phone or FaceTime or whatnot, you can feel like you're kind of right there, and you can kind of do that back and forth. But from a creative standpoint, I'm working on something right now, and if I'm not in a great mood because I just had to, go and watch this thing, my creative, mind isn't gonna happen. Like you can't force those things. And I just told Oscar, I guess this is maybe what writers feel with writer's block, or like a musician feels. Like if you don't feel it, it can't just happen. So it's not like you can have this 8 to 5 and go, okay, you guys are in this room, you have to make it. I mean, you could, it just probably wouldn't be the best work, right?
Well, it yes and no, because part of the nature of the job, and it is a job, is you got to do it even if you don't want to.
Like the deadline thing.
And well, it's not even that. If you give yourself the out of I'm just not feeling it, then all you're doing is waiting around until you do feel it. And then what happens is you're just making excuses. At a certain point, you've got to sit down and go, this sucks. Everything about it sucks. Everything I have created today sucks. But I did create a thing today. And then you get up the next morning and you spend, you spend another 4 hours hammering at it, and eventually, hopefully, maybe it gets better.
Right.
But there are times when, and I've had works where all it is, it's Sisyphean. All you are doing is pushing a boulder uphill, waiting and hoping that you're going to get to the top so the boulder will roll. And invariably, and a lot of the times it does. A lot of the times, if you hammer long enough, it breaks. But I have done things that never, ever, ever got easier. And there's nothing quite like the frustration of going, well, I've been sitting here for 5 hours and I have a page and a half to show for it.
I know you've discussed, like, for example, novels are like just grueling for you. And I see what you mean, because I know in the past you've shared as well, the writing process is sit down and write. and then make it
Yeah.
better, and then make it better, and then make it
Yeah.
better. So that makes a lot of sense. Okay, last question was, if you were to write something like Gotham Central nowadays, how would current events and the hopefully changing role of police in society impact that? And what would Gotham Central look like in today's America with a Batman family in the picture?
Um, it would be much more socially relevant to the moment, because the core premise would, I can't tell if that's coming from where you are or where I am.
It's not here. That beeping sound, but it's
I
gone.
think our dryer just stopped. I think
Oh,
that's
okay.
what that was. I apologize.
That's okay.
So if I were doing Central in this day and age, like in this historic moment, the core conceit is still, what is it like to be a good cop in the city where Batman works? And attached to that conceit is that that the Gotham City Police Department is eternally corrupt and cannot be trusted. That the reason the detectives we follow are significant is that they are good cops. They believe in the job they're doing. They are not on the take. They are not abusing their oath. They are trying to protect and serve. And so, I mean, I saw my friend Andrew Badovich, I think, used the term propaganda, which I don't think I'd encountered before, and he may have found elsewhere. And I think that it certainly Central is propaganda to an extent, but it was never intended to give cops a pass. And so were I to do a Central like book today again, we would have to talk about the failures of policing, right? We would have to talk about the failures of the way the system is broken. Mm-hmm. And we would have to spend time examining those breaks within. Do you look at Central now? I mean, it's indicative to me that the reason that Renee quits at the end is not, she quits because she has no faith in the job anymore. Right? And the reason she has no faith in the job anymore is that there are so many bad actors in the department around her that she can't defeat them. And they're so bad they almost made her like them. And this goes to the problem I've always had with Harvey Bullock. Harvey is a bad cop. Mm-hmm. As he was when I met him, he is the worst kind of cop. He's the kind of cop who grabs people and calls them skells and punks and points guns in their faces and throws them around, and views the law as, meaning the law, as an impediment to what he feels is right and wrong, mm-hmm. and just and unjust. Mm-hmm. And, you know, and Renee ended that story with a moment where she was very, and one of the things, you know, if you've read all the stuff around it, if you've read Officer Down and then you read, for instance, Gotham Central, the moment Renee finds herself at the end is very similar to where Harvey was at the end of Officer Down. And one of the reasons she walks away is she knows, which I almost killed a man. Right? And I almost killed a man justifying it in my rage and my grief. You know, Corrigan in that story is absolutely reprehensible. The reader should want him dead. He has done a horrible, horrible thing.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the reader should not want Renee to kill him. Mm-hmm. So, you know, there is, I think, of course, there is plenty of story to be mined and to be found there. And it would be, but it would be, to more fully answer the question, I think it would be grossly irresponsible to write a Gotham Central that did not reflect the real world.
Mm-hmm.
That did not reflect the hunting and execution of people of color.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and yeah, in the same way that I couldn't possibly write Lois without in some way talking about what it means to be a journalist right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just going to bring that up actually. How you always do kind of bring in the currency of the times and weave that in so well. So I think that would definitely be the case. So, well, we did it. We made it through all the questions. And yes, listeners, we are going to take 1 week off.
I have to get a bit of a break. I have to travel.
And we'll all be thinking about you. You're going to be fine. Just bring extra masks.
We'll be okay.
You'll be okay.
But yeah, so that gives everybody 2 weeks to read Circe and to come up with other questions, I guess.
Yes, lots of questions and things. and we'll have a fun discussion.
And to really bear in mind, this is a crisis moment. It doesn't matter if this is happening in your city. The fact that it's happening in any city means it will happen in yours.
Yeah. Well, and if we are really one country, then your city is my city,
Yes,
so
absolutely.
and you should feel that if it's, if it's happening to your friends and family anywhere, then it's an assault on us as well. So
this is the time. This is literally the time, if you never have before, to be emailing or calling your representatives, at the federal, absolutely, at the state, at the local level, but your senators and your Congress people, you've got to say, what are you doing about this? You have to do something about this. You have to do something about this now.
Yeah. Yep. Get out there and be active.
History is not going to judge these people kindly.
No.
I mean, history is not going to look kindly on them.
Yeah, this is what I've tried to tell, others when we've had these discussions. I was like, when you look back, even just say 5 years from now, what side of history do you want to be on? I mean, really think about this and soul search yourself, because I did actually just finish How to Be an Anti-Racist by Ibram Kendi. And it's interesting that one of the things that jumped out at me was, well, I'm not racist, but if you vote for people that put law into effect that is racist, that does bad things to people of whatever, fill in the blank, color,
it is racist sex, behavior.
LGBTQ, you are therefore, enabling racism. And so you cannot say, well, I've never said anything wrong to XYZ. If you are voting in that direction, and vote is on our mind now. Our elections are coming up in August for here, and then of course, obviously, we have November. But if you are voting in that manner, then you do not have that right to say. I mean, there's just this disconnect, and there shouldn't be. That was something that really resonated with me. So those of you who are listening, get out there, vote. And I will link a lot of things that Greg shared with me back when I first read Lazarus for you to do something as simple as click a button, sign a petition, email, call, get involved and make a difference.
It is so simple. It is so simple.
And it does matter.
Yeah, it matters. And it matters so much that Trump is trying to shut people up who are doing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's the power of the voice.
Yes. So thank you so much for this lovely conversation.
Thank you, Mimi.
Have a wonderful week. I will miss talking to you next week, but we will be back with Circe.
And, to everybody, to you, to Oscar, to your whole family, to everybody listening, I hope you are safe and you are healthy and you are well.
Thank you so much.
We all need it. And
absolutely.
And I sincerely hope it. So
thank you.
All right, talk to you later.
All right, bye.
Bye.
That's all for today's episode. Thanks for listening to Culture Chat, and hope you enjoyed the conversation. Please subscribe and rate my podcast. Feel free to leave me suggestions or send an email to mimi@culturechatpodcast.com or follow me on social media at Sifu Mimi Chan on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook.